What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with an album from 1983, and one I've been sitting on for a little while. I wanted to start by giving a major shout out to big friend and champion of the channel, Doug, a member on Patreon, has sent some donations through PayPal, has sent me a lot of physical media. I went through the Kissing the Pink record, that came from him. I've been going through the Blaze and their dancehall album, that also came from him. And another thing he sent me at the same time that's been sort of waiting in the weeds is Duet Emmo and their 1983 album, Or So It Seems. Doug mentioned this again to me recently, and when that happened, I realized that one of the members of Duet Emmo was Daniel Miller, label boss of Mute Records, and essentially the person who discovered Depeche Mode and was very intimately involved in the early Depeche Mode sound, in some cases sort of helping Martin and the others learn to use synthesizers better. So I'm a big fan of Daniel Miller and his role in Depeche Mode's history and just in Mute in general. And apparently this project also included Bruce Gilbert and Graham Lewis, who I understand were part of a duo called Dome. So the little bit I know about this is that it was an electronic, experimental type of project with a quasi-industrial sound, so I'm very intrigued by that. As I said, this album is from 1983, it's called Or So It Seems, but they released an EP of the same name in 1982 featuring 2 tracks, the title one, as well as a B-side, which was not originally on this 83 album, but this is a 92 reissue, and it includes the extra track from the EP. So yeah, I'm just excited to go through this. I'm curious to hear what else Daniel Miller was doing. Again, I've heard the assembly and some other things where I have a sense of what he was involved in outside of Depeche Mode, but I'm very excited to hear it. We're going to listen to the opening tune on the album, though as I go through this, I probably will jump around a bit the way I've been doing with the Blaze release. But the first track is called Hill of Men. It sounds like it could be a bit more dramatic and maybe macabre or intense. On battlefields there are hills of men as people are slain and bodies pile on top of each other. There's also the idea of, stepping on people to get to a higher level, which is still very intense, and there's a degree of violence to that. It could also be about building a pyramid or building on top of what other people have done, so it could be less negative, less violent, and more idiomatic. Either way, I don't expect to hear a whole lot of lyrics, actually. I would be more inclined to think that this will be a concept piece, so even if we do hear singing, it might be more about the sounds. Maybe there will be no singing at all. Again, I try not to look too closely into something beforehand if it's really a piece of music or a release that I've never engaged with at all. I do have to note the very interesting artwork, almost has a bit of an ancient Egyptian feel to it, so not quite sure what to expect sonically or conceptually, but let's hear the opening track on Duet Emmo's Or So It Seems album, 1983, and it's called Hill of Men. Does sound like a 9 Inch Nails precursor or something. Unsettling. There's a trance-like nature to it. These haunted quasi-vocals. I feel like we're walking into a nightmare. With our eyes open. disclaimer, I don't expect to hear lyrics now. Other than those, if those are spoken words. Kick, as I said, gives it a hypnotic trance feel. Down tempo. That last part, there are acid techno tracks that end that way, although with a 303, which admittedly I think was actually first publicly available in 1983. Either that or in 82. Regardless, the point is, I like the way it bubbled and liquefied into oblivion at the end. As I said at some point along the way, it felt like we were in someone else's nightmare, but a confusing, a bit, what's the right word, disorienting one. Definitely an unsettling feel, those haunted, off in some other dimension vocals, but like trying to reach out for you. Pained, like mournful, something to that effect. I don't know if they were actually words, perhaps they were. I now wonder whether we'll hear lyrics at all on this, but I feel like maybe we're entirely sonic atmosphere type of territory. But yeah, a haunted one, and one that feels unsettling even as it was compelling, which I feel like, you know, sometimes dreams can be like that. You don't quite know what's going on. Maybe there's a little bit of a worry, but it's like, oh, what is happening? Like your brain wants to know. And yeah, the steady and quite forceful kick drum. That kick drum really had some pop to it, although my brain would normally focus on that a little bit more in a slightly more overt trance or techno environment. So yeah, as I said, I feel like hearing something like this makes later dark electronica, or at least electronic infused acts like a Nine Inch Nails, like I think Skinny Puppy. I haven't actually listened to a lot of Skinny Puppy, but my brother used to, and he used to compare Nine Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy and some other acts, and so they were all kind of in that weird dark territory. So this feels like a precursor of that type of music. Definitely curious to hear what else we will find. Big shout out to Doug once again. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.